I'm telling you guys, this is the last time that I let Akitoshi Kawazu anywhere near the Final Fantasy franchise. I mean, just look at what he did to Final Fantasy II.
Oh, come on, man. It wasn't that bad.
Hey, you haven't even gone through the first dungeon yet, so be quiet.
Guys, that doesn't fix the issue at hand. We need to put him working on something.
Yeah, because somebody didn't want to fire him.
Excuse me for being a decent human being.
Wait, what about that SaGa game he was working on? I thought that's what that was supposed to be.
Yeah, but come on, it's an obscure Game Boy game. No one's gonna buy it.
Wasn't that kind of the point?
No, the point is that the game is going to make no money. People just want Final Fantasy.
Well, maybe for once you should just release a Final Fantasy game in the West.
But this SaGa game's already out in Japan. There's not much we can do about that.
So what if we made sure that people in the West bought this game by giving them exactly what they want?
I'm listening. Perfect. They won't suspect a thing. So yeah, directed by Final Fantasy II designer Akitoshi Kawazu, the Final Fantasy Legend was the very first Final Fantasy game to release on handheld systems, despite the fact that it wasn't really a Final Fantasy game. In Japan, it was called Makai Toshi SaGa, or SaGa, Warrior in the Tower of the Spirit World, but the executives over at Square didn't think the game would sell in the West as part of a new franchise on Game Boy, especially since the company was not as well known in the US compared to Japan, so they just decided to slap the Final Fantasy name on it and watch the dollar bills basically print themselves. Now, I don't really know much about the Final Fantasy Legend, but if it's anything like FF2, then you can guarantee that it's going to be god-awful, so I'm really looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and pop this bad boy in. So in typical Final Fantasy fashion, we are greeted with a giant wall of text setting up the story. This time around, we're in a world that has a giant tower in the center that leads up to paradise. Apparently many people have attempted to climb the tower, but they were all never heard from again, and now it's our turn to try and do so. So much like in Final Fantasy I, you get to pick your character classes between humans or mutants, both either male or female, and then 4 different monster types including Clipper, Red Bull, a were-rat, and a zombie. You know, the classic zombie class in Final Fantasy. This is the party that I ended up going with. You got myself, Dean, as the human male, then you got Mia, the human female, Jake, our resident mutant, aka basically just a mage, and we do have one monster, that being Nick, who ended up just being a lizard. So we start off in this little town that was built around the tower leading to paradise, but apparently we can't go in just yet since it's been locked. Talking to a small man in a magician outfit lets us know that someone called Genbu has apparently hidden the key in a, quote, statue of hero, and if we even want to attempt to go up the tower, we gotta find the statue and take the key first. Heading to the overworld with actually a surprisingly generous amount of random encounters, we get to the game's combat, which has many systems that are just as, if not even more weird than the ones in Final Fantasy II, but for very different reasons. First of all, every weapon that you buy comes with a certain number of hits that it has, and after you use that weapon that number of times, it breaks and you have to go buy another one. The same, however, also applies to magic spells. They have a limited number of casts, and also armor pieces, which can only take a certain number of hits. All of these things have to be bought. Now, that doesn't sound too bad. Buying armor and spells and weapons is nothing new to Final Fantasy. Heck, even buying ludicrously expensive armor and spells and weapons is nothing new to Final Fantasy. But what is new to Final Fantasy is this leveling system. Oh yes, they somehow managed to make the leveling system even worse than it was in FF2. See, if you want to raise a character's HP, or strength, or agility, or any kind of stat, what you have to do is actually buy an item that will raise it one by one for each one of your characters for every stat. And on top of that, the amount of points that the stat is raised by is completely random, so you could end up wasting all your money on trying to raise a character's HP and only barely have it go up by like 5 or so points because RNG has decided to be an asshole. And you probably won't even be able to waste all of your money on raising their stats because on top of constantly having to buy weapons and armor and spells that break or run out every 10 minutes, you also have to buy lives for your characters. And when I say this, I don't mean that you have to pay every time someone dies, although you do have to pay for that too. I mean you have to pay for a certain number of lives for each character, capping out the amount of times that they can die in the game before they, wait for it, permanently die. Yes, you heard that right. If your character dies and you did not pay for an extra life for them, which mind you costs 10,000 gold, then they will die permanently, and you will have to go back to town and recruit another party member, which will of course have to start from scratch with all their stats that you spent money to level up completely gone, and with no armor, no spells, no equipment, and no levels. Now, I don't know what kind of a psychopath you have to be to come up with a leveling system this stupid, and to be honest, I don't want to deal with it. I won't deal with it. I just got done beating Final Fantasy II like last month, and that game was pure agony. This game, it's not worth it. I'm not gonna do it. And you guys can make fun of me all you want, but I'm gonna use cheat codes in this game. If you expect me to spend money for weapons, armors, spells, level ups, and to prevent permadeath, damn straight I'm gonna cheat some money and levels into this. I'm not gonna grind for like 10 hours just to be moderately competent in gameplay. So now that we got that out of the way, let's keep going. Walking around the overworld for a bit, we very quickly found a town that, wouldn't you know it, just so happens to be the one that has the statue of Hero. Well, that was extremely convenient, but things aren't gonna be that easy just yet. See, the statue is supposed to have a sword, a shield, and armor, all of which are missing, supposedly being held by 3 kings named King Sword, King Shield, and King Armor. Yeah, I know, they were very original with these names. Conveniently, Castle Shield happens to be right next to the town that we were just in, but talking to anyone there will just result in us getting thrown out. If you somehow make it all the way to the King's throne room, you'll find that, Jesus Christ! Are my glasses just dirty, or are you supposed to look like death incarnate? Seriously, that sprite looks like they took a skull and just slapped a Beatles haircut onto it. Yeah, the King and his steward just tell us the same thing, that we're not welcome and can't have the shield. Figures. I guess we'll come back to Castle Shield later. As for King Armor, he's a little bit friendlier, admittedly. He mostly just talks about how he's madly in love with this one girl that lives in the south, but he thinks that she won't accept his proposal. So we go to the south and find this village full of, I swear, one-eyed Octoroks, including the girl that King Armor is in love with, but it turns out that the only reason she turned down his proposal was because a bandit threatened to destroy her village if she didn't go with him instead. Now, at this point, we have 2 options. Either go to the bandit cave and see how things work out for us there, or just try to find King Armor another girl. And frankly, I live in Texas, that's in the south. Let's go find King Armor another southern girl. Alright guys, so this many bracelets can only mean one thing. It's social experiment time. We're gonna be going around asking people if they would date your boy King Armor, see if we can find him someone else after his last love. Let's go. And so, our journey to find the perfect woman for King Armor had officially begun. Who knew how many people we'd have to ask? Dozens, hundreds, maybe even thousands. We could be doing this for the rest of our lives, whatever, to make our king happy. That being said, let's see how the first one went. Would you go out with King Armor?
I don't know who that is.
He's a king. He just recently lost his last girlfriend to, I think she was kidnapped by lizards or something like that. He's a pretty handsome dude. Would you say?
Yeah.
You would? So I'd say yes?
Yes.
Alright, well thank you.
So what happened?
So, honestly, I was expecting it to take a lot longer than that, but very first person we asked said that she would go out with King Armor, so guess we got our homeboy a date.
I mean, bad for us, but good for him.
But low-key, we should probably still go to the bandit cave, just in case.
Yeah.
And what else would all the bandits be but lizard people? Of course, not unlike our homeboy Nick. Very appropriately, when we reach the leader, Nick goes, "Ya dirty stinking lizard, forget about the Goyle," and after he refuses, we engage in combat. So after a relatively easy battle, I mean, I know that I use cheat codes, but I get the feeling that this guy wasn't the toughest boss regardless, he actually drops his meat. Okay, so let me explain. I mentioned earlier that Nick is actually a monster, specifically a lizard. Well, monsters can actually turn into different monsters by eating the meat of those monsters. Obviously, the stronger ones are gonna be like, harder to find, and of course, harder to get to drop their meat. Now, the plan that I have for Nick is to turn him into a Lich. You guys remember Lich from Final Fantasy 1, right? And in order to do that, I need him to eat the meat of a skeleton, Redbone, Dokuro, warrior, and then Bone King before turning into Lich himself. But it is worth noting that other routes for your monster can result in a high slime, a fireman, an ant lion, pudding, Iron Man, and even a Nike if you want to be a little more exotic with your monster. Since the bandit was a lizard, and Nick here is already a lizard, his meat was of no use to me, and even after begging for mercy, we sliced his head off on the spot. This is why you don't mess with us. Going back to the castle, the king gets to be happy with his little Octorok girlfriend, and when we ask him for his armor, he just straight up gives it to us. What a nice fella. I'm sure the other kings will be just as nice and accepting. 1 down, 2 to go. Alright, well, King Shield is still being kind of an asshole about his play, so let's go see if King Sword is any better. If his castle is anything to go by, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say no, since literally everyone that we talk to turns out to be a monster that we have to fight, and I kid you not, I spent a solid half hour in here trying to make my way through the ungodly maze that he calls his palace. Not surprisingly, he challenges me to a fight over a sword as soon as I talk to him, and I'm not gonna lie, he is actually pretty tough, unlike the Bandit King. Lucky for us, he's apparently weak to Jake's fire spells, which I just spammed over and over again, and he went down pretty hard, leaving nothing behind but conveniently a sword. Alright, I've been putting off King Shield for a while now, I guess I'll go see what I can do with him. So going into his throne room, we find that, oh my god, he's dead. I mean, don't get me wrong, he looked like he was dead even back when he was alive, but I think that he might actually be dead now. Apparently, the steward killed him right before we set foot in the room, and he's planning on framing us for the murder. He tosses a couple monsters at us, which were really no biggie, and after we destroy them and chase him down, the little snake starts to beg, offering us money and whatever else we can want, even the shield. But, as we've established before, once you mess with us, there is no turning back. Also, look at this fabulous son of a bitch. Now that's a cape I can get behind. Regardless, we burned the man's corpse to ashes and took the shield too while we were at it. Didn't really do him much help in the fight anyways. Damn, this is now the second time that someone has begged the party for mercy and we just refuse and slash him down. A pretty brutal set of heroes if you ask me. But I mean, hey, we're gonna need this kind of determination if we want to climb up the tower. And so finally, with all 3 pieces, the sword, the shield, and the armor, we go back to the Statue of Hero and place them on, only for nothing to happen. Well, at least not until you attempt to leave. That's when Genbu, the monster that hid away the key to begin with, comes out to fight us. Apparently, this was all part of the trial. Your first, I guess, labor is to defeat Genbu. You guys know the drill at this point. Fire, 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 and dead. Although he proclaims that this is not over, and he just presumably disappears, leaving behind the key to the tower, which in this case took the form of a black sphere. So after wasting our time going around doing all that, I can finally get to the tower and begin to attempt the challenge that was presented to us at the very beginning of the game. Let's go ahead and get this started. Using the black sphere allows us to open the tower, which was locked with black magic. Now the tower is actually, I think, a pretty cool game mechanic, if a bit poorly executed. Basically, the tower serves as a hub that you will constantly be coming back to throughout the game, except instead of being like most game hubs, that is, you know, somewhere that you go to rest up, relax, buy items, heal up, and save, the hub in this game is pretty much straight hell. Not only does every room look identical to the previous one, a fact that isn't helped by the Game Boy only being in black and white, but every floor has multiple doors that are all kind of like portals to different worlds. The wackiest, most off-the-wall crap that you can imagine can be found in each one of these worlds, and I guess it's kind of starting to make sense to me now why so many people got lost when trying to climb up the tower. For your and my sake, I'm gonna skip talking about every single one of these weird floors and instead just talk about the ones that are required for the story, okay? Trust me when I tell you that we could spend hours here discussing how ridiculous some of these worlds are, but we don't have that kind of time. I got a tower to climb. So the very first major block I reached is another door that was sealed, this time not by black magic, but rather by blue magic, and is this technically the first mention of blue magic in a Final Fantasy game? Lucky for us, we found the little magician man from the starting town. I guess he must have climbed up the tower too and gotten here before us, and he tells us that we gotta find some old guy before leading us to the water floor. Oh, this should be good. Walking around, I was basically able to find this little worm guy that basically gave us the full scoop on what's been going on. He told us that Ryu has been banished by Ryu Oh. Well, no wonder. That explains everything. Yeah, believe it or not, in the shop, they actually sell an SMG of all frickin' things. Yeah, the monsters will stand no chance as I literally gun them down 1 bullet at a time. Now, we can explore different islands that are connected through underground passageways, but we're honestly very limited when it comes to traversing this world, considering most of it is water. Lucky for us, there is a way to traverse the water, but it's not what you might initially think. Yeah, whereas most Final Fantasy games would give you a boat, a ship, maybe in the rare case like a raft or even a submarine, Final Fantasy Legend decided, screw all that noise, and just straight up gave us a moving island. Unlucky for us, there's still random encounters on the floating island, and it's pretty much all exactly what you'd expect from ocean and water encounters. You know, water, werewolves, all that kind of stuff. Eventually, I found this island full of pine trees that at first I thought was supposed to be some kind of maze or puzzle that you have to go through in just the exact order to reach the end and then get like a special item or something, but it turns out that all there is the old man that the magician guy told us about. And he just says, the air seed is on the palm tree in the center. That's it. It was totally worth coming all the way out here. Absolutely. Anyways, the island that he's talking about is actually not that hard to find, all things considered. It's just a foresty island that happens to have a big old palm tree smacked right down in the center, and sure enough, we find an air seed hidden inside, which gives us the ability to breathe underwater. This comes in extremely handy because the very next dungeon just so happens to be an underwater one. It's really convenient how all of this just happened to line up like that, eh? So about the whole Ryuo and Sai-Ryu thing, apparently they're both dragons, and each of them had one orb, a blue and red one, but eventually Ryuo decided to banish Sai-Ryu, and that's about all that I can piece together so far. Trust me when I tell you that this Game Boy dialogue can be very vague. The reason we care about any of this is because if you recall, the door to the next floor is sealed with blue magic, and just like the black orb in the door sealed with black magic, I assume that we'll need this blue orb to open it. But apparently Ryuo doesn't have the blue orb anymore, if what this NPC says is to be believed. So at this point, I have no clue why I'm even doing anything that I'm doing. I'm just gonna keep going and hope that I eventually start getting some answers. Much like previously in this game, the dungeons are an absolute nightmare of mazes and differing paths. I'll spare you guys all of the grueling details, but in the end, I basically reached this giant room that has a bunch of orbs placed all over the floor and was forced to check every single one of them one by one until I found the one that was the red orb. It would be a lot easier to find the red one if the Game Boy actually had, you know, color, but what are you gonna do? Upon taking this orb, we are challenged by Sai-Ryu the Red Dragon, who dies the same way that everyone else dies in this game, by taking fire to the face, and we make our way out the dungeon. Okay, so we got the red orb, and that's all fine and good, but the orb that I needed to open the door was the blue one. Now what am I supposed to do? I get that I've complained about this with every single one of these old games, but seriously, the lack of direction is so bad. I ended up spending an hour or two going to different islands like a jackass, talking to everyone, trying to find what I was supposed to do next, until I finally decided to go back to the useless old man that told me about the air seed. Look at this Dr. Wily ass looking guy. All he tells me is a riddle asking what can you get for 2 long swords, 3 gold helms, and 4 potions. And get this, the answer to the riddle is that you have to go to the store, look at the prices for all of the items that he listed, add them all together, and then find an item that is worth exactly that same amount, then go give it to the old man. Oh god, now I have to do math just to play this game? It's starting to feel more and more like a chore than something I'm supposed to be doing for fun. So I figured out that a battle sword is the item that matches the price I need to get this, and after giving it to the old man, he just gives me the blue orb. Straight up. So you're telling me that the reason Magician Man told me to talk to you was because you just had the blue orb the entire time? Meanwhile, you sent me on a mission all across the damn archipelago just for your own amusement? And just like that, we're able to transform the orbs into a magical sphere and open the door to the next floor. Don't you guys just love this game? Anyways, after messing around in the in-between tower rooms for a bit, I eventually made it to the next floor, where I was greeted by Magician Man again. Now, I'm not gonna say that this is suspicious, but it does raise an eyebrow. Yeah, I guess, yeah, it's suspicious. So alright, in this new floor world, there is apparently a ruler that is calling for guards, and I guess our plan here is to try and become guards and work for him, which will, I don't know, I guess somehow help us get to the next floor. And whereas the previous floor was a water world, this one is actually a cloud world that we're probably gonna have to end up getting some kind of airship to explore. Or, well, I guess by the standards of this game, it's probably gonna be some kind of like magic flying building or an elephant with wings or something. Anyways, we head over to Exposition City, where we learn 3 valuable pieces of information. 1, the sphere that we'll probably need to advance is hidden, and the only people that know its secret are a guy named Charles and his 2 daughters. 2, there is a hidden city somewhere in the clouds that we'll probably have to find using our winged elephant. And 3, the leader of this world that is looking for guards is named Biak Ko the White Tiger, and his men can usually be found getting wasted at the pub. I'm surprised that Sid from FF2 doesn't work for this guy. Anyways, the only one of those 3 that I can actually do anything with for now is the last one, so I headed over to the pub, and sure enough, his guards were there. Now, in typical bar scene fashion, they do try to kick us out, and it turns out that his guards are actually literal mosquitoes. Why is this game so damn weird? Yeah, and as you guys might have guessed, I just one-shot at these guys. I mean, I had the respect to use my rapier against him, but at this rate, I should have just used like a fly swatter or something. Naturally, all of the other guys are amazed at my incredible display of skill and offer me a job on the spot, a job that I refuse since I am way above them common peasants, but then immediately turn around and accept since I remembered that I'm flat broke and need the cash. Alright guys, first mission working under the White Tiger himself is to catch us a girl named Jean. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm gonna say that there's about a 51-49 chance that she is one of Charles's daughters who knows the secret to the sphere. Luckily, Byakko lends us an actual airship to fly on. Oh, I'm sorry guys, I guess the winged elephant will have to wait until FF Legend 2. And naturally, we run into your standard flying enemies that you see airborne in every video game. You know, samurai, saber-toothed tigers, whatever the hell this hellspawn abomination is supposed to be. Geez, game, be more original for once. Two birds with one stone. While looking for Jean, I actually accidentally ran into the hidden cloud village, which actually turned out to be pretty lame, all things considered. Just more shops and people telling me info that I already knew, like the fact that Jean is one of Charles's daughters that knows the secret to the sphere. Who would have thought? And by the time I actually found her, all the other guards had already gotten to her. Damn, sleeping on the job, guys. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to please the White Tiger as much as the next guy, but in all honesty, screw him. Let's just kill these guards and take Jean with us. Also, am I the only one that finds it weird that Byakko has one of those hellspawn plant-looking things on his team? Alright, so Jean is safe, but the other twin sister, isn't. She's missing as she was kidnapped and is being kept in a floating castle. And see, I told you guys that there would be some kind of floating building, and you all were doubting me. Ha! So Dean, Mia, Jake, and Nick all come to the rescue and eventually find in the floating castle surrounded by guards. We kick their asses only for Byakko himself to show up and give us the rundown. Yeah, she essentially betrays her own sister and decided to willingly side with Byakko. He considers us a pretty useful asset after seeing us defeat the previous bosses and thus just used us to do his dirty work for him.
Aha! You might have faced Genbu and Sairyu and Byakko, but can you defeat Lu Bu?
Long story short, he tosses us into prison with the worms. Yes, actual worms, but he seems like a pretty nice guy, all things considered. If only Paul the Ninja could save us this time. The other inmate is taunting us about how we won't be able to break the bars, and then we literally just break the bars. You'd think that Byakko could afford some better security considering how many men he's able to hire, but then again, most of them are mosquitoes, worms, and amalgamations, so who really knows how much he pays them? Sword, take me, Jake. Ah, the sword speaks.
Well, okay then.
Now, luckily, we're able to find 3 gliders that we can use to go find Jean.
Okay, so how about this? Jake and Nick can share, Mia gets her own, and I get my own.
Drat, the engine won't start.
Okay, how about this? Jake, Nick, and Mia can all share, and I still get my own. Drat, the engine... Again? Alright, fine, I'll share, jeez.
Eventually, we reach Byakko and Jean, and after getting the two of them together, he's able to acquire the White Sphere. After this, he does the typical bad guy thing and betrays Malaya by trying to kill her, but Jean jumps in the last second and takes the hit for her sister. We have a boss fight against Byakko, and after getting defeated, the little pile of crap disappears and takes the sphere with him. Mia, being the reasonable one here, is like, hey, the sphere is gone.
Alright, geez, I'll shut up. Myself.
Now, get this. After seeing Jean die, Malaya starts crying, and her actual teardrop turns into the damn White Sphere. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, it turns out that was their secret. But what the hell was the secret? That your teardrop turns into the sphere? Okay, why did Byakko need the two of you then? Apparently he just needed to show one of you those try not to cry compilations and boom, just like that, he's the most powerful being in this world. Can both of you create the sphere? If so, why were you able to do it right now by yourself? And also, what's up with the sphere that Byakko already had? Was that a fake? How did he even get it? Was it real? Is there multiple white spheres? What happens when the two of you die? How will we get white spheres then? Also, how did your father Charles teach you this ability? Could he do this too? Is it like a hereditary thing? If so, why aren't the two of you like the royalty of this kingdom with how valuable you are to the well-being of this entire world?
Am I seriously sitting here questioning the logic of a Game Boy game where a tiger commands mosquitoes? Yes, I am.
Now, we could stay here to try and find out what exactly happened to Byakko, but we got what we wanted, so I'm gonna go ahead and peace out of here. You guys deal with that. I got another floor to get to. Alright, so I know that I said that I wasn't gonna waste time with all of the non-story worlds, but I did want to point out this one that I found, which is just a small room knee-deep in water thanks to a lake's level rising. You talk to this one dude and he's like, Bob started it, and then you see Bob and he says, I'm sorry, it's my fault, I threw garbage in the lake.
God damn it, Bob, you had one job.
Eventually I did run into, you guessed it, Magician Man, and he tells me that in this next floor, the hyphenated, vaguely Asian sounding big boss that I gotta deal with is named SaGa, and that fighting him isn't gonna work, it's best to just run. And he wasn't kidding either, this boss is impossible to kill and he encounters you pretty much every 2 steps. This is unedited footage right here. I can't even blink without this guy showing up trying to kill me. Luckily, we were able to escape by going underground, where we find this girl that leads us to town. In the end, she leaves though, and Nick is a bit sad that he didn't get her number. Once we're in the town, we are warned not to go into the pub, as 99% of the time that results in a bar fight. Naturally, the very first thing that I did was walk into the pub and pick a fight with some dude named Socho. Now, I'm fairly confident that we could have kicked this guy's ass, but luckily for him, the girl from earlier stepped in to stop us. It turns out that she's his sister, and her name, Nick, pay attention this time, is SaGa.
Now, Nick, SaGa is cool and all, but is she as cool as Maria from FF2, baby? I don't think so.
Instead of kicking this guy in the next year, we all decided to sit down and talk our problems out, and as it turns out, we're both on the same side, fighting against the terrorist bird Suzaku. Wow, who would have thought? The guys here have been building a machine to try and destroy him, but they're missing a few pieces, and of course, there's no one that can find them except for us. The parts can be found in Akiba, but these guys are so incompetent that they don't even know where Akiba is, so we gotta go do some research and find where the place is located on the library.
To the library!
All right, so I'm just gonna choose one of these random like 5,000 books that they have here, and I guess we'll go from there. Oh my God, the first book that I pick up, and it's exactly the one that I need. Now, explain to me how this works, but the book tells me where to find Akiba by saying that it's 14 steps east and then 15 steps north. But that's 14 steps east and 15 steps north from the library. Did whoever wrote this book know that it would somehow, someday end up on this library exactly when we needed it? What if someone took the book somewhere else, huh? Then the information would be inaccurate. Or do the book's directions change depending on where you are? Like, does it have a tracker locating its position relative to Akiba? This is so dumb. Anyways, I got there, and after like 20 minutes of trying to navigate the town without getting half my party either killed or blinded, I managed to salvage the ROM, which was the first part that was missing. Turns out that there's a hidden little exit above one of these stores in town that you gotta go out so you can talk to this one dude and trade the ROM for what I can only assume is a motherboard. Now the only part that we're missing is freaking plutonium of all things to power it up, which we can easily get from the plutonium plant down the street. Clever little Dean, though, decides to sneak out in the middle of the night without telling anyone so that we can handle Suzaku on our own, but homeboy Socho ended up catching us on the act. He ended up tagging along with us, and after quite a long trek and losing Jake to the stone status effect, you will be missed, we ended up making it to the damn plutonium plant.
Sadly, the door that we need to get through is across some red plutonium spikes. Now guys, I think I have a plan that might work, but we're gonna need some rope, duct tape, latex gloves, gas masks, Phillips head screwdrivers. Wait, Socho, what are you doing?
Oh my God, this man literally walked through the spikes, clearing a path for us through the door and killing himself in the process.
I don't know whether to call this man a hero or a dumbass.
Now, we're able to get the plutonium, but the plant's alarm system discovers us and sends their mech against us. I'm not gonna lie, this guy's pretty tough all things considered, and it did take me a couple tries to actually beat him. But after a while, I was able to take him down, and we escaped the plant with the last of our materials needed to finish up our machine for fighting Suzaku. And one, as much as I hate to say this, long and boring dungeon later, we eventually got to, of all things, a train station where we climbed into one of the carts and made our way to the front where Suzaku was holding SaGa hostage. Because of course, this game had to have me rescue some kind of damsel in distress, right? I'm telling you guys, one of these days, I'll play a game where this doesn't happen. One of these days.
Should we just start a counter? Let's go ahead and start a counter. All right, so we got Sarah from FF1, Hilda from FF2 twice, and now SaGa from FF Legend.
Anyways, we used our machine to take down his force field, actually making him killable this time, and despite the fact that it was just Mia and me during the fight, it surprisingly was not too bad, all things considered. I mean, I'd say that it was easier than fighting the mech for sure, at least. But by the time that I was able to get to town, I was blind, Jake over here was still stoned, and Nick was dead.
I mean, is Mia best girl or what?
So, get this. While we're mourning over Socho's death after defeating Suzaku, Sayaka just comes up to us out of nowhere and is all like, oh, by the way, nothing to do with anything, but while I was out and about, I just so happened to find this sphere. I don't know, thought you might want it or something. Okay, thanks, bye. Man, the script for this game was just so well planned, wasn't it? All right, well, I said my goodbyes and all. Now that I have the 4th magical sphere, I guess it's time to keep going up the tower. And who do I run into but, of course, Magician Man, who warns us that the final enemy, Ashura, awaits for us above. We prepare the party, stock up on items, get all our best armor and weapons on, and walk up a long staircase to face them, only to be immediately teleported away. Okay, so I walk all the way back and once again make my way up the stairs only to be teleported away again, goddammit. So as it turns out, what you actually have to do is walk all the way up the stairs, but on the final platform, go either left or right to avoid the middle, since doing so will actually cause you to teleport away from the boss and you'll have to walk all the way back up to him. I can't tell if this is a glitch or just crappy game design. At this point in the game, the two have honestly just blended together, but whatever, let's just go around and face this Ashura guy already. I want to beat this game. And this Ashura dude is absolutely no joke. He hits like a truck and has so much defense that it would put a military tank to shame. It took a while, but I was able to beat him. Once again, solo with Mia, as literally everyone else got one-shotted.
Told you she was best girl.
However, we're not done just yet. After defeating Ashura, we're taken somewhere that looks surprisingly very similar to the first starting town in the game right outside the tower's ground floor, except everyone that we met through our journey is here, including Top Hat Dude himself, Magician Man, who tells us that paradise itself is just beyond the door. I think Nick asked the question that we're all wondering at this point. Who the hell are you? To which we get no response, of course, typical. Now there is one last, I guess, set of floors that we have to go through before the finale, but it's actually pretty straightforward, and it's more than anything just an excuse to have a bunch of cool boss fights against the game's previous bosses. Kinda like in FF1 where all of the fiends are back to fight you in the final dungeon, here we have to face Genbu 2, Sairyu 2, Byakuko 2, and Suzaku 2. And it all culminates in us actually reaching paradise. It's a lot more empty than you would think, honestly, and there's actually only one person in this entire place. You wanna know who it is? It's Magician Man.
You guys aren't ready for this. All right, you wanna know what the Top Hat guy's deal is? He's God. Oh yeah.
Apparently the whole shtick about Ashura was just a ploy. He created him to test humans, and we're the first ones that were actually able to successfully climb the tower. To him, this is all just a game, which obviously our party sees as unjust and cruel. He does try to offer us a wish as a reward, but come on, man, you and I both know where this is gonna end. Start the encounter, gentlemen and ladies!
So let me get this straight. There is an all-powerful being in this world that created this entire universe, designed it from scratch, and likes to call it a game. Guys, did the creator of this game have a god complex?
Alright, so judging by the fact that this was made by the same incompetent doof that worked on FF2, I think we both already know that this final boss is gonna have some kind of crippling weakness, right? In this case, because of a weird glitch, or at least I think it's a glitch, it's actually chainsaws, believe it or not. So yes, guys, the Final Fantasy legend literally ends with your party straight up chainsawing God in half. And after all of that, what lies past where the creator once stood? But another door. The party discusses it for a while, but ultimately they decide that whatever lies beyond the door doesn't really matter to them. Instead, they turn around and decide to go back home where they belong with all the people they love.
And I gotta say, admittedly, that's a pretty cool ending.
Now, does that make up for the game's tedious dungeon crawling and god-awful leveling systems? Oh no, absolutely not. This is still a pile of chocobo crap, don't get me wrong, but it's at least a pile of chocobo crap with a cherry on top. If anything, I can say that the setting of this game was really unique compared to the others, and I mean, hey, it was successful enough to spawn the entire SaGa franchise. That's gotta count for something, right?
Overall, I don't regret playing the Final Fantasy Legend. I'm glad I played it with cheats though, don't get me wrong, but still, for the very first portable Final Fantasy game, it wasn't half bad. And this also being my very first SaGa game, I'll say that I'm cautiously optimistic to see what the future of this series has in store. But I guess we'll find out. See you guys then. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video on the Final Fantasy Legend. Man, this video had so many skits, so there's gonna be a ton of outtakes. And of course, if you guys wanna see all those, you can always pledge to my Patreon. I offer a bunch of rewards like early access to skits, bloopers, behind the scenes, all that kind of stuff. So go ahead and check it out. Please, Loot Guy really needs a job. The next video after this is gonna be for Final Fantasy 3, which I actually already started streaming. You can catch the VODs at youtube.com/Weiss archives. Help me get that channel to 1,000 subscribers so I can actually make money off of it. And for updates on when I go live and all that kind of stuff, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I've actually been using Instagram a lot more than I did before, so if you haven't followed me on there, then go do so. Huge shout outs to Mia, Jake, and Nick for not only being the people that I named my party after, but also for making a small cameo at the beginning of the video. All of them can be found on my Discord server, which is free to join for any Final Fantasy fan. It's funny because it's supposed to be a group of my fans, but all they do is just talk crap about me all day. But what are you gonna do? And of course, huge shout out to Loot Guy for helping me record all the skits like always. Once again, guys, these videos ain't cheap. Patreon.com/DukeLeonhardt. And that's going to be it for me for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to blitz that like button, subscribe, and as always, stay tuned, Kupo.